The time is just gone 21 minutes past 9 a.m. as we continue with this morning's broadcast. And we're now joined by the president of the Active Citizens Coalition, Imtiaz Sayed. Now, you will recall in the build-up to the local government elections, we spoke extensively to the ACC, and the party is now, or the leadership has now been labeled as a sellout for voting with the RET faction of the ANC. And to clarify this issue, we are now joined by Imtiaz Sayed. Imtiaz, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jummah Mubarak and welcome.
Jazakallah, assalamu alaikum salam, and Jummah Mubarak to you.
Yes, Imtiaz, I've noticed on some of the groups, this has been quite a point of discussion with regard to the ACC, your position, and this serious labeling of the leadership as a sellout. How do you respond to that, Imtiaz?
Firstly, I'm trying to understand what does a sellout mean, because I think all of this comes from the opposition of the country, which is the DA. And ultimately, it's a point of view where they are saying that because we didn't vote with the DA, we are now sellouts. Realistically speaking, there were only two options when it came down to the issue of mayor. And let us be very, very clear. This was not in terms of voting with the ANC as in a coalition. This was in terms of voting for who we felt as a party would be a mayor that could service the city. That is what it comes down to. It came down to the issue of voting for who would make a better deputy mayor over whom. It came down to who would make a better chief whip than whom. That's what it comes down to. It doesn't come down to anything else.
Yes. Now, Imtiaz, I noticed you said obviously the DA. So what you're saying is within the party itself, within the ACC, there are no real issues.
No, absolutely not. With all due respect, before we went in, after Monday, and I think maybe you want me to go a little bit backwards. I'm not too sure, and I'm not sure how long this interview is.
Yes, but just we've got about 7 or 8 minutes.
Okay, so I can't really go into exactly what had transpired pre us going into yesterday, but sorry, not yesterday, day before yesterday. With a brief understanding, we had called in small parties on the 13th. That is, ACC called them in and said, guys, we have only one thing in principle. We are small parties. We know how to stick in our lane. We know what our numbers are. We really don't make a difference right now. But give me a principled mandate to go and find the floor and come back and give you feedback. So with that being said, we realized that there was a movement happening with small black parties moving together, and which had ultimately at some point joined the EFF. When that happened, we realized that there was something happening there. I went into a meeting with the EFF. We couldn't find each other. Ultimately, there was nothing there for us in terms of saying, this is how we can work together. Ultimately, it was one way or the other, or take the highway. And I wasn't willing to go into that position with the EFF in any way. And when I say EFF, there were a few other parties there, but the EFF was the majority core in their numbers. So with that being said, we moved away from that direction. I approached Action SA, and it was very, very much the same thing. It was, we neither here nor there. We're taking instructions from our national leadership, and that's where we would go. I brought that back to the floor of the 6 principal mandates that I had. I gave them the information. I told everyone that they're now on their own. In the interim, what we needed to understand was that we went on Monday into an election, okay? Into an election of what? Not the city. That happened on the 1st of November. We are elected councillors. Now, in order to constitute council, 2 things need to happen. The councillors need to be sworn in, and there needs to be a speaker of council. Once that's done, we now have a council, okay? So that went very well. However, where the mess up came in is that the DA and the opposition of the DA at that time, not the ANC, the third grouping of people were having their own discussions, and they nominated someone else. So with that being said, we had 3 nominations for speaker. Immediately for us, the penny dropped to say that if the ANC has the numbers of 94 in the House, and if you still have another 2 candidates, those people have now split the vote. And it was quite obvious at that point that the ANC was going to become the speaker. There's no contestation there. That's the numbers. There were 3 candidates. They came from 3 different sides of the fence. The ANC was going to take the speaker of no doing of the ACC. So let's be clear on that point. It was at that time, my communications with all parties was open all the time. right up to 11:28 on that day, my discussions with Nicole Graham Bears on WhatsApp, where I said, Nicole, tell me who you are fielding. Let us see, are they capable, all of that. Our interest was to ensure that in the city, we had a leadership that was not fighting with each other, number one. We had a leadership that could work together, number two. And we had a leadership that was not just going to be an opposition for the purposes of their bigger national agenda. We were clear from the beginning. We are a local party. We need to do what's in the interest of the people in the city, and that is our stance. So when it came down to the brass tacks of things, right? The EFF, the IFP, the small bloc, including Action SA, ABC, and everybody, they realized, and remember this, the deputy mayor currently in was actually in this grouping of 33 originally, okay? So the 33, the EFF, the IFP, now the 33 is with the EFF. The IFP and the DA realized that if they got together, they'd have numbers in terms of 115, and the ANC would have been sitting with all the small parties that they already had, excluding the ACC would have given them 101. If ACC jumped in with them, it would have given the ANC 103, right? The EFF, the DA then realized that they had numbers of 115. They very quickly pushed an agenda to push Nicole Graham in as the mayor. They then pushed for an agenda to push in the gentleman from the IFP, who's a good guy, as the deputy mayor. And I'm not too sure as to who they were fielding as the chief whip, but I propose it would have been PG Mavunla. Now, that was on Monday. Obviously, the meeting got cancelled. I really don't want to go into a debate of how it happened, but things are simply obvious, right? So that is not even a discussion to have. However, now we go in and we're reconvening on Wednesday. What very quickly happened on Wednesday, and it was quite evident as soon as we started the meeting, we're in the ANC Exco. Remember, the executive committee was already constituted. There were 5 members from the ANC, 3 from the DA, 1 from the EFF, 1 from the IFP. The level of discussion between the parties that were moving to the 115 was to say that the DA needed to have given PG Mavunla a seat on the executive committee to take the position of deputy mayor or whatever it is that needed to have happened there. We were not privy to those discussions, nor were we invited to those discussions. The attitude of those parties on the day dictated to us that they're not really interested in talking to the small parties. So they ultimately went in their own direction. Now, with that being said, as soon as that didn't work out, PG Mavunla with ABC obviously went to the ANC and they did something with him. They spoke to him, or whatever it is that happened. I don't know. We're not privy to these things. And they then decided on Wednesday to have a resignation coming from their from their side of the members of Exco. They dropped their number to 4. They gave PG Mavunla a seat on the executive committee, and then they were going to nominate him for the deputy mayor. That's clear in direction. Did we vote to the ANC? Yes, we did. Why? This is very simple. If EFF and IFP and Action SA and the DA could not bring in their ranks in terms of saying, in this position of what we are talking about right now, we cannot come together. Tell me in the next 5 years, how would they come together? If the EFF could not make an arrangement with the ANC and the IFP felt let down by the ANC, ultimately that's not our position. We are not in opposition to anybody. We are 2 seats. We have a responsibility to 14,826 people that voted for us. We need to get service delivery done. We are not here to fight party politics. The official opposition is the DA. They must talk to the ANC about corruption. Now, what I can understand from what happened the other day was that very, very quickly the ANC understood that they could not have factionalism here. They closed their ranks very quickly and they united. All right? Now, in terms of what they do at national level and provincial level, I'm not really interested in. I'm interested in what's going to happen in the city. Now, if we had a coalition of all of these different parties, tell me, where does ACC fit in? Nowhere. They will first need to work themselves out. They will first need to discuss what they're going to be doing about the city, and then they will start trying to start rolling out things. And they would have only supported their own. We came in as ACC because we felt that there was a lack of service delivery based on the fact on many wards where the DA sat, they were pushing an opposition agenda all this while. And by virtue of that, we lack service delivery in certain areas where the DA was. So we as ACC had taken a stance at that point to say, number one, who is it that will give us an ear? It's that simple. Who will give us a ear? And ultimately, it comes down to us not worrying about their own party politics. Everyone sitting in council is a councillor. You don't represent your party. We sit in council as councillors. We need to have relationships with people within council, not being their opposition, but saying we are here to work with you in order to get things done. And that was our standpoint. We didn't go and vote ANC. We voted for a mayor who we believe that would listen to what we have to say. Now, if you're giving me a choice, and to bring it down to its real issues, between Mkhulisi Kaunda and Nicole Graham, I'll tell you now in no uncertain terms, it will be Mkhulisi Kaunda. Why? Because I know he will hear me. He will pick up my phone. He's not fighting to be an opposition to anything. Nicole Graham, I can tell you right now in front of the floor, and I can tell you this straight away. In the ranks of the IFP and the EFF, they were going to go into a vote of no confidence immediately with Nicole Graham, because the question would have been raised, would you go into every single ward within the city? Now, by the time we got through all of those hurdles, how do we get things done? These are the questions that came up on the floor. These decisions needed to have been taken on the floor. Now, calling us sellouts, I don't understand. Some people talk about brown envelopes and all of these things. Let us be very clear. We have voted as ACC. The options were simple. Are you voting with the ANC or what the DA is leading in terms of what they want? We did not vote against the DA. We voted with the ANC. Let that be clear. It does not mean that because we didn't vote with the DA, we voted for whatever. We voted as ACC. We are our own party. So let that point be very clear. And where the DA comes from in saying that the small parties made things happen, let us be very clear. Action SA and ABC were part of you. Those 6 seats made you. They switched and they went to the ANC. So you needed to have closed your ranks very quickly. And that's where it came from in simple terms.
Yes, Imtiaz, we can obviously go on. There's just so many other issues, but unfortunately, time is of the essence, and obviously we just wanted clarification from your side and the ACC's position. Jazakallah for that, and I'm sure this is not going to end. There's still going to be a lot more discussion, and you and I will be talking a lot more, inshallah. But for now, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was Imtiaz Sayed joining us this morning. The time is just gone 9:34. We're going to go for a quick break.